Hey everyone, it's all set. Hope you guys are doing well. Just wanted to come in and discuss a few things. This has been quite the week. A lot of people are upset, upset with what is going on, the constant injustices behind these types of cases. So if you're catching this video a little bit later down the line, I am speaking on the Breonna Taylor case and the refusal to charge the two officers with the murder. So people are just expressing the constant anger, and that is to be expected. But I wanted to take this or these energies and connect these energies more so, or even just these scenarios playing out and connect them to the macrocosmic and basically going a little bit wide angle or a lot more wide angle to connect to the root of what might be, at least from my perspective, a major influence on situations like this. So I'm going to definitely bring in or discuss planetary influence. So, or I should just say frequencies as well, the frequencies and the influence of the frequencies of the planetary systems. I actually made a video a few months ago speaking on Jupiter and Saturn, which I'm actually going to talk about today because it's actually relevant to today. So I'm going to bring in those planetary influences into this conversation, but I made a video that is definitely thorough and just explaining, going into major detail in what I felt, the relationships between the different planetary systems and so on. But I'm going to discuss time and justice because we're talking about injustice and we're also talking about looping storylines. There's another video that I also made that is very recent that I will also put that link in a description where I was talking about releasing toxic ancestral storylines. So this is coming back also into this conversation as well, but it's coming back more so into the conversation when we're talking about time. So I was just, as I was even writing my notes, I saw that even with the name, and people are comparing Breonna Taylor's case with Emmett Till's case. And she would basically be that modern day Emmett. But as I was writing the name, I noticed that Emmett backwards is time. And I found that very interesting. Then also seeing that on the same day, there was no one was charged. No one was charged for either case on the same day for September 23rd. So there's a similar, catalyst for upheaval and change. Same dates when we're talking about the injustice side and no one being charged for neither one of their murders. And just again, these two also just being a masculine and feminine aspect of this tragedy. So just looking at the symbolism behind it, just in general, without even going too deep, I can already tell, these things are more so ritualistic as well. So we have to at least connect or see the bigger picture sometimes, just to deal with the details in a way that at least is more beneficial to empower us, right? Empower us as people, as beings, so that we are not necessarily falling back into the same traps of time anymore. When I'm talking about the traps of time, I'll be talking about the inverted side of time before we get to the healthy side, because there's an original aspect or essence of time that has not really been tapped into due to what we call the dark cabal taking over. So I'll discuss that a little bit further in the video, but just wanted to mention that here. And when you look back even at Emmett's case, it was his case that was the catalyst for the civil rights movement, period. So looking at the loop, looking at the storyline, Breonna's case is going to be a catalyst for something that spikes in that same way. So it's just going to be modernized. It's going to be like the civil rights movement, but just in a different way. So it's easy to say, or it's safe to say, that there's an expectation of an upheaval, of some kind of disorder or chaos coming from this particular event. So it's really, where do you stand within all of this, and just how are you going to navigate through certain parts of just change that just happens when things like this happen. So now let's get to the rings of time. And I wrote, time is not the enemy. Enemy is not time. When time is on your side, listen, when time is on your side, you want time to be on your side. But we look at time as an enemy on how death is presented to us. So we always feel like, or some people feel like, they're running out of it all of the time, or they're constantly exchanging it all of the time. So clearly there's a high value there. It's a high commodity, the highest period, when it comes to value and exchange and sequence. It's the sequence of life. So if you don't have time, you're experiencing everything at the same time outside of time. And it's hard to discuss time in language this way without even saying the word time, even when you're not talking about time. So time still creeps in even when you're not even trying to talk about it, right? So it's there. It's there. So how some people say time is not real? Well, I would disagree with that, because we create time as we create, or as we go through what has been a slowed down sequence. Okay, we wouldn't be able to experience life in the way that we do without time. Okay, so in knowing that the sequence within itself allows you to have a play-by-play of life, which creates experience, accumulated memory. Okay, experience and accumulated memory. And the accumulation of these memories and experiences is what contributes to our knowledge, to our wisdom, to our value, to our purpose. So there's so much that comes out of just simply living in time. Although we have the ability to exist outside of time, because we do, but it's just remembering how to connect with that part of yourself. But if you are here within this realm called Earth, the earthly realm, then you have clearly agreed to participate within time at some point, in some way. So you might as well not make it an enemy if you don't have to. So we're going to discuss different ways on how to actually flip that, that distorted version that has been handed to us, and yeah. So now we're talking about the Dark Cabal and the rings of time. So even when we're talking about the rings of time, the rings of Saturn has rings when it's depicted as a physical planet. Disclaimer here, we're not here to talk about planets and shapes or anything like that. When I say planet, I am talking about a frequency, a cosmic influence, celestial body, celestial frequencies that we all hold and embody within us, that we are automatically connected to. That's what I am referring to. So, but we're going to refer to some of the physical aspects, right? So the physical aspect of Saturn is Saturn's rings. And it's kind of, the Dark Cabal has taken over the rings of Saturn, basically the false lord of the rings. Okay, so this dark or inverted order has lost their false ownership on time. Now, this can only be valid in your life if you choose to take your time back. So this is not necessarily a collective, poof, be gone, Dark Cabal, get out of here, leave, and give us the time, or give us our time back. This is an individual remembrance and claiming of time, which is really claiming your memories. It's claiming your mind. It's claiming a part of your consciousness that contributes to, as I said, the sequence of life, which is precious. The reason why you have old photos of your family and so on is because there's something precious or valuable that you see in those memories that you want to keep. Just like all memories, sometimes there are some memories that we don't want to revisit, but there are plenty that we do and that we want to pass down in generations, whether it be through knowledge and wisdom, and that's okay as well. So there's a choice on what you get to re-experience, on what you get to keep, on what you would rather, just put in a vault. So this is your own divine right. It should be, at least. But in order to really reset or go more so into taking your time back, is stepping outside of it, which is really stepping on the inside, becoming more present, literally right now, present time, outside of it. Breathe, look at everything, feel everything in real time, and recalibrate and reset, and make sure that you are claiming this authority in present moment. And then you go on and step right back into that veil of time with this presence that you can now carry, which we would now call real time. But this is a process, because there's been a lot of hoarding of our memories and time and parts of our consciousness. So it's something that has to be consistent in reprogramming parts of self that has been completely turned into default programming on how time has been running us. So it's a different perspective on looking into it. Also, why is time the most sought after? Because it's memory, it's experience, and it's records. In the last video, or the video that I'm referring to that I made with Saturn and Jupiter, I was referring to the records as being like music. So when you look at Saturn, when you look at the rings, you can even see that it looks like a record player, and the grooves and the different, the spaces and the lines and so on, it's basically the recordings of everything. So the thing about this is that the expansion of time has been put to a halt. It's kind of like running out of disk space when you're looking at time and how it's ran by the false lords of time, where they give you a certain amount of space for your memories, and then at a certain point you get full, and then there's a swipe or a wipe. But the thing is, you don't get to choose what you want to hold on to, just like we do when we create our little scrapbooks and, memories and so on. You don't get to choose when you're in a default system. You don't get to choose what you get to keep and what is wiped, and it's kind of like most of the time, because the dark lords, the dark cabal does not want you to get past a certain point, because it's a constant relooping. So in order to reloop the same storylines, you have to keep beings trapped within certain storylines within themselves. So it is connected to the ancestral lines and the DNA and all of that, because it's just on record. So it's like leaving all of the crappy or all of the shitty memories behind, and taking all of the knowledge of self and doing something else with those memories. But so then when you come back to, however that is, whether it's back from death, whatever that is to you, when you come back, you don't remember that you healed from that trauma, or you got through what you got through. So when that storyline is presented back to you, it feels new to you, and you don't know why you have certain urges when nothing has happened. So why are you afraid of that thing when you've never been on that thing before? Why? Because it's just this instant replay and residue that still lives within the mind, that we still react to, although that memory may be gone. So that's when we're talking about time, we're also talking about data. And nowadays, data is the hot commodity, which means it's time. It's just another version of it, but collecting your data is that is all they want. You have the data, you control the world. You control the algorithms, you control the beings that are accumulating this data within themselves. So you get to create outcomes based upon human behavior. So, I mean, this is the obvious when we're talking about time here. So it's like, you know, what I wrote down here is don't allow these false time lords to give you or serve you bits and pieces or crumbs of your time anymore by handing you those shitty memories that you have actually already moved on from. So inserting yourself back in time loops, and it's hard to really realize when you're in one until you step outside of time. So this is where time becomes your friend. So real time is back. Okay, because it's time for the records. Time himself. If we are looking at archetypes, some people are calling, you know, refer to Saturn as father time, you know, has at least talked more so about the inverted Satan or the Set, which has been full of distortion, barren lands, death, controlling, overbearing, masculine side, right? But there's a whole other side to that, just like we all have the different parts of self, that is restoring itself. Because time itself, if we're looking at time as an archetype or as an energy or essence that we have created from the inside with this sequencing, this entity that we call time actually does not want to be controlled by these forces anymore. Okay, because this entity actually, if you can think of, because we're talking macro here, and if the macro affects the micro, then of course it is your business. Because if you think of the macro Saturn as let's just say Saturn as being the mind, if we're talking about time in the way where we're talking about it today, in memory, memories are stored, right? So we experience the memory through the mind. So it's kind of like these dark forces mind controlling you. So if you are the entity called Saturn and you have all these dark forces just controlling you, then at some point you're going to get tired of that when you come to or become more aware, right? So if we're talking about the macro body, it's as if we're comparing the time as like a record or even music, it's like an artist wanting to play more music, but goes to the boss and says, hey, you know, I made some new music, or I have room for new memories and new experiences here. Can I play it for you? And the boss basically says, no, we're going to play these same old songs just like we do on rotation, and you're going to deal with it. So just imagine this entity of time saying, I'm tired of this shit. Like, I don't want to keep playing these records in my mind, nor do I want to keep influencing my micro versions, you know, and portraying the same thoughts or the same memories. So time itself is like waking up as a cosmic energy. Going back to the original aspect of it, and we're going to talk a little bit about that as we go further into the video. So it's time for the records to expand. It's time for Saturn to be like, hey, you know, here's my new records. And I think you guys may actually like it. And on top of that, there's more space. So we get to expand on what we've already experienced, building on top of the memories, more so than relooping and reliving the memories. There's a difference, because that was, at least from where I'm pulling from intuitively, that was the whole point, to build on experiences. And if we're talking about infinity, we're talking about continuously allowing consciousness to expand however further it goes. Now, there are consequences to that, because sometimes when certain beings get too much knowledge and not enough wisdom, and there's not a balance between all of that, then there's a cutoff. There's this spirit of lack that comes through and says, I need to control again because this is information and I can do something with this. And then we go back into that same behavior. So, you know, the ancient futuristic ones at least have tried to preserve this way of consciousness growing. I spoke about this in another video where I talked about, you know, there's an aspect of the earth and what we call earth that is a farming aspect. There's a harvest to it. So you're either the product or you've gotten yourself out of that grid within itself and you've become more so unplugged from that particular matrix. So where you're not subject to the farm and what goes on in the farm, but you can at least, you know, contribute to at least empowering others to kind of, you know, slide on out if that's the preference. And some people want to stay in the farm, let them stay, let them stay. You know, it's a personal preference. You can't force anyone. So so this is what we're talking about here with the real time being back, the expansion, the ability to expand on our knowledge and our wisdom. So and how to achieve this, at least kind of like collecting all of your chakra stones, right? The infinity stone situation, you know, just collecting or balancing all of your chakras. So even in the last video where I mentioned walking through your chakras, getting to know these parts of yourself so that you can look in every crevice in every corner of these parts of you so that you have an intimate relationship with these parts of yourself. That's how you learn how to balance each part, okay? All of the chakras. So it takes your not just awareness, but your participation with self in doing that. I have a workshop that helps with that, by the way. So yes, that is one of the main ways on how to actually recalibrate your just your essence so that you are able to connect with your real time. So also when we're looking at the planetary frequencies, we're looking at these frequencies almost as like they are the DJs of the universe, and Earth being that venue or that the stage. So when we're talking about these cosmic alignments with these planetary frequencies, we're playing out the story of the cosmos, just in case y'all didn't know. Okay, the story of the stars, the story of the cosmos, it's being played out within this realm that we call Earth, the physicality, you know, because if we weren't able to, we are the celestial bodies, but we descend and we come into a density and a physicality to act out the stories and the frequencies that are happening more so on that primordial level. So it becomes the cosmic dance here on Earth as we are still connected to the rest of the cosmic alignments. But going beyond that is a goal for some, to not necessarily be so influenced by these celestial bodies, and going beyond that, what you would even call the ether, going beyond and being able to recognize and really exercise your benefits in being the creator that you are, and seeing it play out and actually influencing the cosmos themselves. Not many people reach to that level, but that is a goal for some, you know, to actually be a part of, or it's like being a writer, a producer, a creator of a storyline itself. And there's an influence, but in order to influence the cosmos, you have to know the cosmos. You have to know these planetary systems and these stars and so on. You have to know them deeply. Just like you're not able to really change your own storyline if you don't know yourself deeply. So you'll fall into old stuff and end up there. And you're just like, wait, how did I get here again? Because you're not paying attention. So people talk about going beyond, but are you really self-studied? And that is a part of the journey, becoming self-studied and looking at the outer cosmos and the inner cosmos and really putting those alignments together, so that you are able to create from that etherical realm that allows you to contribute to the storyline instead of just being acting it out. But most people are acting it out. So, those who have control over the storyline, they kind of sell you the same story. And we've seen that in the movies and in the films. They'll resell you the same story that you've watched over and over again. They'll just there's a remake. You don't think they're doing the whole remake thing with the human experience? It's the same thing. You see it in these cases, these same cop killings and so on, and the politics, everything is a replay. Do you not see it? Do you not recognize it? If you are able to go back and study certain timelines, you'll see the repeats, which means that that record player is just on that loop, and then there's a stop, and then they go back to reset. Memories are wiped. People don't know that they lived this out before. So when we're talking about deja vu, it's just you recognizing that you did this shit already. Like, for real, you did this already. So a lot of people's memories are coming back online. So the thing about that energy is that it's all over the place because you don't know where to place them when they are presenting themselves to you, because everything is recalibrating within the cosmos back to its natural state. So that's good news, but it can also feel chaotic because when we're talking about nature rebalancing itself, there are consequences to that rebalancing. So this is why making sure that you are at least conscious enough to know about these things and working with the energies in a way to where you are aligned with them and not against them, such as time. We can look at time as an element as well. Then you wouldn't really have anything to quote unquote worry about. You can ride it out on that cosmic current. So in talking about Jupiter, Jupiter is that it's the planet of thunder. So the thing about Jupiter is, Jupiter also symbolizes justice within itself. And the thing about Jupiter is it is the first planet to be birthed into the solar system. So it's a very ancient energy, the most ancient within our solar system. So when I look at Saturn as the memory, which is connected to the mind, at least, and there's so much more to Saturn, but again, I'm just talking about the memory and time aspect of that particular energy. We're talking about the mind. And with Jupiter, we're talking about the heart. The reason why I say, and I know when we look at Earth, we say Earth is the heart, because look at the anagram. Yes, Earth is a heart. And I'm going to get back to towards the end when I'm concluding this on the different aspect of the heart, different layer to the heart. But Jupiter, we can compare it to conception and the fetus. When the fetus is growing inside of the womb, the very first organ to form is the heart, the very first organ. So when we look at the solar system giving birth or forming into this macro body, the solar system, and Jupiter is birthed, that would be like the heart of the universe within that, or at least within this particular solar system. That would be the heart within this body that we live in. The reason why I compare it to the heart is because of the thunder component, because the sound of the heart is synonymous with the sound of thunder. It's the same, just on the micro level. So your heart beating is literally your inner Jupiter thundering on the inside. Isn't that amazing, right? So there's that thunder, 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 boom, 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 constant. So it's the start, at least, or the beginning of the heartbeat would be that thunder energy. And then it goes and it regulates into the constant beat, I should say. But the very first initial is what they cannot pinpoint. They don't know where it comes from. It's also synonymous with Big Bang, the Big Bang and the boom. But where'd the boom come from? The sound. So that is a very mysterious part, very mystical part of life within itself that is still to this day trying to be studied. But it's hard to study because I don't really think that aspect of self really wants to be figured out. It wants to be experienced. When we think about matters of the heart is just kind of like, well, in collaboration with the mind, there's that guidance and that the feeling and the emotion that comes with the thoughts. But the heart, to crack the code of the heart is, it's going to lead you back to the heart, is what I'll say. Because then you realize that you want to feel, you want to like feel the heart instead of trying to figure the heart out. So Jupiter is that planet. So the heart of the solar system, lightning and thunder. If you didn't know this, when lightning hits the water, there's an instantaneous creation of life. Okay, so Jupiter is also the planet of lightning and thunder. It represents those components. So again, if we're talking about the first to be birthed into the solar system and holding on to the tools and resources of creation itself, that's a big deal. The Jupiterian energy that's a big deal. That's an essence that we carry inside of us. Do we know more about it? So that part of Jupiter it's there. So I wrote down here, as I said it before, the intelligence of the heart is mysterious, and it governs the realm of the invisible intelligence. So when we're talking about Saturn and Jupiter, we're talking about the mind and the heart in this context. And the reason why it's relevant to what's going on today, just in general, with people, with the population, with the constant looping of storylines and cases that are being presented that are where people are reacting in a very predictable way. Not saying that it's right or wrong, but it is pretty predictable in how we are handling certain things and how we are feeling and expressing our feelings, because this is psychology that we're talking about here. The dark cabal, they don't care about the spiritual aspect when it comes to you. They're studying your psyche. The psychological part is all they need, and they feed to that. That's what they prey upon, is your mind and how that works. So the thing about that, if Saturn is the mind and Jupiter is the heart, at least from the context that I'm expressing it today, when we're talking about even COVID, and I brought this up in the other video as well. So, but COVID, people have decoded COVID, said backwards COVID is divorce, or even Dovis or Divak, or whatever that is, means separate. Didn't really look into that necessarily, but someone wrote that. But either way, divorce, separate, or so on. So it's an inverted divorce, in a way of saying that there's an attempt. COVID within itself is an attempt to try to divorce your mind and your heart. They're trying to divorce the mind and the heart from humanity, basically trying to turn your ass into AI all the way. Because we're all connected to some kind of grid that influences us somehow, and it just takes your level of consciousness to get you out, basically going further in. But they're really trying to divorce your consciousness and your mind from your heart, and what makes us human, really having a true human experience, is allowing these two parts of self, along with just all of you, the essence of you within itself. That is what contributes to human experience. So if you are cutting people's hearts out and controlling their mind, you might as well just call them robots. So the your heart is what is it's the attack not on the mind, but it's an attack on the heart space. So basically creating very apathetic beings that don't care anymore about humanity, about themselves, about wanting uh to empower themselves, to move further, because I really feel like humanity within itself, if we're going down the same route and the same looping of time, humanity is done as far as like the peak that we can reach as humans, as human beings, meaning that our primal and instinctual is attached to our consciousness and ways to process the primal. So human experience has reached its peak because the record of time has been suffocated in the mind, not enough space to expand. So the humanity is kept very young consciously on purpose. So to have a human experience is to build upon your experiences and to feel your way through it and learn your way through it. But to separate, how do you get your heart back again? You know, how do you get your heart back again once you feel like your mind has been compromised by this inverted aspect of the dark cabal and what they've been doing with the mind? So the mysteries of self, they're sacred. They're sacred for a reason. The invisible does not want to be cracked or figured out, but it is the driving force to life itself. So the question and the quest is the driving force. So I'm not here to say just experience and just, you know, just run with it, go with it. No, this is why mind and heart collaborate in that way, because there's a quest, there's a question, and the journey of that wisdom allows the path for that quest. And on that journey or on that path, there are things that happen. There are experiences that are collected. So there's a reason why these two parts need to stay together in order to, again, to stay human. If you enjoy being human, right? So even with the new generations that are being birthed into this time now, especially with more isolation, less human contact, more on the computer, there may be if there's not enough of us around to like really champion for the human experience, it's just gonna feel like the newer generations are going to comply very easily with the switchover. You know, no problem. If you're born into AI, then, you know, what's the problem here? Oh, you don't remember, like, yeah, we used to do this and we used to do it this way. It's hard to fathom if you're reading about it online and you haven't experienced it. So experience is not that valuable to beings who are born into the quick fixes and everything that AI serves on that level. For the younger generations is what I'm saying. So the Dark Cabal, they have been hoarding the rings of Saturn. Humanity runs, I'm reading my notes now, but humanity runs out of this space, and which slows down the human when it's just too much going on. Oh, I need to release, I need to release something. But just imagine a force having say so on what files they will be deleting from your computer, right? And what files stay. So it's like, imagine somebody coming into your home and your disk space is full, your memory is full, and you got some stranger coming into your house basically saying, well, give me your computer. So we're going to get rid of these files and we're going to clear this and you're going to keep that. And then you get your computer back and it's like fragmented, like nothing is sequenced, nothing really makes sense. And if I try to make sense of it, I don't really like the storyline. But now where are my other files? Because I can't even, how can I fix this? So that's what it feels like when you become aware of this. So this can determine your entire lifetime. So even if you were completely healed, as I said before, from generational traumas, If that has been taken from your memory bank, then your time has been stolen and you are set up to only remember the horrific times yet again. So sometimes, again, you'll even have that urge or instinct for something, and you don't know why. It's because that residue is still resonating, but it's missing. The file is missing. So when they inverted time or Saturn, they made him a dictator instead of the artist and poet that he actually is. Why? Because time wants to play the records. Time wants you to experience his records that he is collecting from everybody, everybody's experiences. If you are looking at this archetype as a very masculine archetype, all of these planetary systems, they have a feminine pole. We have that feminine part of Saturn. We can all tap into our inner Saturn, whether male or female, and go into those attributes. But for story's sake, I'm just saying he. But yeah, it's just like you have your female DJs, like, hey, yeah, listen to this record. So that's the vibe that I'm getting from the original aspect of what time was actually meant for, which when you have a wealth of it, you honor it and you respect it. So it just depends on what kind of relationship you have with this part of yourself. It can be imbalanced. It can go either way. Sometimes you think you have all the time in the world, and there's procrastination, you don't do anything, there's no urgency at all to get anything done. So you feel completely abundant in time with no honor and respect to it. So therefore you waste it instead. So that other side of Saturn, which would be more so of the fear factor or that death or that father time, that grim reaper coming to get you and take your life, bring you out of time and back in it. Like whatever that is there for a reason for those who have lingered in and wasted their time. So you want to respect time more. Maybe fear in itself may push you into that. So fear can be a teacher, but when you are on the side of fear, where fear is actually your friend, whole different experience. So justice for time. We're saying justice for Brianna, justice for Emmett, justice for everyone else, justice for time, justice for our consciousness and our minds that are constantly being ran and controlled by these beings who just want to keep you locked in a loop and pushing you further and further into an emotional space and responding in certain ways based upon how we used to respond to everything. So that predictable behavior, bringing that and controlling through that is, there needs to be some kind of adjustment to that, at least within self. So time would be the masculine aspect of our experience that supports space itself. They tell you that time is death, but time, when respected and honored, supports life. But Jupiter is a tricky energy because, at least from my perspective with this energy, it's a tricky energy because although it's the most ancient, this essence can feel like the youngest or very childlike due to the inner child resting in the heart of us. So when I think of heart, I think of inner child. So when we're talking about, adjusting my light here, when we're talking about the inner child, if it's resting in the heart, when the mind is not healthy, the inner child never matures. Okay, when the mind is not healthy, the inner child never matures. And when I'm talking about inner child, I am talking about a part of you that is youthful and that should remain youthful. Okay, the inner child does not have to grow up in the way that we look at growing up, but it does need to mature. So that's where the mind and the heart work together and they grow together in that way. Time is also now ready to expand without restriction, and allowing beings to get their just due out of their lifetime experiences. So enough to advance and prolong earned life. Just like you earn your money somehow, finally, as this original essence is returning, there's a opportunity to earn your time back by just recognizing who you are. So the dark cabal is it's time for them to get out of your house. And when I speak of house, I spoke about this in the other video. I'm talking about your temple, your body, your mind, your heart, your soul. These parts of you are sacred. It is your divine right to keep them as such. So the controllers who feel like they have a hold on your mind, your memories, your dream state even, it's time for them to go home. So kick them out the house, meaning that it's time for you to get your mind and body back. And it's time for, just like COVID has everybody quarantined, it's time for them to be quarantined within their own homes, which means within their own memories, their own bodies, and face whatever inner demons that they have been avoiding. Because to make a being so evil, there has to be some kind, what kind of records or memories are they holding on to keep them in that loop? Those are things probably their consciousness may not even want to face. So it's like going through your trials and through your journeys. The different doors have the different demons. A lot of these beings, they've been avoiding this journey or this trip for themselves for a while. So they concern themselves with other beings through control. Two other planetary systems that I wanted to bring into this conversation was Mars and Venus as well. I don't know, there was an article on there may be life on Venus now. They saw something in the atmosphere of Venus that may show water, life. What? Right? So these things are symbolic. These things are basically telling you the journey of the divine feminine is actually restoring itself. That's what I see when I read these stories. I look straight into the direct influence on the macro and micro. So these two planets are supposedly barren, but this is only because they are used for their power. So the masculine and feminine have been pulled apart, separated, and when separated, there's clearly an urge for both of these poles to want to be together. And through the control, they completely go in and they separate these two, which creates that scarcity mindset on both poles. And if both of these planetary systems and frequencies are connected to our inner masculine and feminine pole, which they are, then of course we're going to feel the same way unless we know better. So the Venus is the feminine that has been controlled by the cabal, the dark cabal, using what I would call her flower power, okay? And Mars has been, this aspect of the masculine has been manipulated to either soldier up or fight without purpose for causes that don't even benefit him, to look at him as an archetype. So if you think of Mars, Mars is like that soldier, the warrior, or the fighter. He's also the protector as well. So there are the other sides of that. But he's used, again, by the inverted or distorted aspect of just pushing him into that mode of fight, even when it does not serve the purpose for the greatest good or the greatest harmony of all, I should say. And the same with that Venus energy is over-sexualized, overused, over this and over that. It is so obvious in seeing it play out in the women, especially, or even in the feminine poles of the masculine. So both of these energies have also been controlled in consciousness to the point where they can't even go further, because these have turned into like programs almost, because these aspects of self have completely lost the inner life and connection to consciousness, and is just being used and pulled from, even from something empty. So the fiery planets, the planet that once had life and is now barren, how do you think that all happened? It's when you're constantly pulling and you're not allowing that balance to flow between the two poles to replenish the conditions of both poles. So if we look at time and heart, right? Saturn and Jupiter, masculine and feminine through Mars and Venus, represents the fullness of the right and left brain within our solar system. Okay, and I'll say that again. Saturn and Jupiter it's more so of a more refined, wise aspect of the masculine and feminine, the record keeper, the experiencer, the creator, in a sense that creates the sequence as well, creating new sequences through frequency, just like we do with musicians. And heart, or the Jupiter, has that essence and energy and provides the space as well, and the emotion, the guidance for the journey of time, and so on. So that would be the masculine, feminine. Again, the Mars and Venus would be the more immediate pull, the automatic pull of the masculine and feminine poles that most people are connected to. A lot of people are not really utilizing their inner Saturn or their inner Jupiters, but a lot of people are really utilizing that Mars and Venus energy in the ways to where it is advertised to them to do so. So again, they would represent the fullness of the right and left brain within our inner solar system. Mercury would be the one within self that is able to exit the entire system. That's that Thoth energy, that Tahuti energy, to exit the system, becoming whole within, then merging with the original essences of time and heart, or Saturn and Jupiter through wisdom. So Mercury eventually embodies time and heart, and then journeys back into the world to teach others. And that is the real Messiah. I spoke about this when I was talking about Lemuria and Atlantis, Thoth and the Emerald Tablets, how it's really just a symbol and guide for the journey of the quest for knowledge, the thirst for knowledge, getting you on that journey, learning about yourself, experiencing yourself, then being able to step outside of the programming that you've learned about yourself in, see it from a whole different perspective, then step back in that joint and do the work, or, you know, in that sense, empowering others. It's a very empowering spirit. It's not a control spirit. So the Messiah has been used to control by the dark cabal. The Messiah program was not meant to be used that way. It was meant to just be a guide for humanity to say, hey, I went through this, I made it here, I journeyed back, and I have stories to tell, things to teach, and ways to empower you to reach other higher levels of self. That's all that is. It's a trade-off. It's a balancing, checks and balances system with humanity. So we all turn into our own inner messiahs when we get to these points. But with this great ascent, there is a great and gentle descent. Okay, so if it's not too fast, not too slow, like it's on the journey and it's on path, then this is where you get to come back into the world again and empower those. So that's when I think of Mercury connected to these other frequencies. This is what I see, because even when we look at Mercury, Mercury is merged masculine and feminine. Mercury is that androgen energy, but it's truly, there's that completion once that inner Mercury has allowed him or herself to go outside from the inside to come back in, if that makes any sense. So in coming back to what I was beginning, or where I started with the conversation, is a lot of what we see happening in the world are storyline loops. It does not mean to not be empathetic to what is happening. Very real things and very real tragedies are happening to our people, to us, even just humanity within itself, not even playing the race game right now. So in knowing that and not wanting and wanting to at least counteract that due to your divine responsibility, if this is something that you've made an oath to within yourself, to at least contribute to the collective through your individual growth and knowledge and wisdom that you carry, then it's time to start changing up these storylines, these loops that are only going to destroy us at some point, because we've been through it already. They say there's nothing new under the sun. It's not trying to recreate or rearrange the cosmos. It's more so when you go more so into the balance of knowing yourself truly, you will know how to navigate through the energies instead of, again, going against the current of the energies all of the time, to where now it's depleting you and positioning you in a certain manner to where you never win. So this is why it's important to get to know these essences inside of you, to always keep it authentic when doing so. And it at least balances out the energies out there, because there's a lot of external everything going on out there. So when you realize, oh, okay, I'm a part of all of this somehow, what role do I want to play, or what roles do I prefer playing in these storylines, since they're looping? So it's a choice for self versus not having a choice or not even being aware. That's what I'm speaking of when I'm saying creating new narratives, is being completely aware of what you would rather participate in and how to truly work with these energies on the inside, so that there's a direct fluent influence on the outer world or on the outside. So that's pretty much it. When speaking on all of this, I don't want to see this storyline loop again, but I have all we can do is continuously share and empower one another to just at least gain more authority of self, as we navigate through these cosmic waters, right? So yes, that is pretty much it. So I want to thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed, and yeah, I'll see you soon.